Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast. Today I want to talk about something simple, everyday, but actually very useful if you're learning English, a visit to a barbershop. I'll walk you through it step by step from my perspective as if you're right there with me. Not just vocabulary, but real life logic, how conversations flow, what people actually say, and how to feel comfortable in that situation. So imagine this. It's Saturday morning. I look in the mirror and realize my hair is getting out of control. Not terrible, but messy enough that I can't ignore it anymore. That's usually the moment when I decide, yeah, it's time to visit the barber. Now, going to a barber shop might seem like a small thing, but if you're in an English-speaking country, it's actually a situation where you need practical language skills. You don't want to just sit there silently and hope for the best. You want to explain what you want clearly. Otherwise, you might walk out with a completely different haircut than you expected. So, I grab my jacket, check my wallet, and head out. On the way, I'm already thinking, what exactly do I want today? Short on the sides? Leave some length on top? Maybe just a cleanup? This is important. Before you even walk in a barber shop, you should have at least a basic idea of what you want. Because one of the first questions the barber will ask is, what are we doing today? And if you freeze at that moment, it gets awkward fast. When I arrive, I open the door and I immediately notice a few things. The sound of clippers, the smell of hair products, maybe some music playing in the background. There are a couple of guys waiting, someone already in the chair, and the barber gives me a quick nod. This is where basic communication starts. I don't need anything complicated. I just say, do you have time for a haircut? Simple, direct, natural. Sometimes they'll say, yeah, take a seat. Or, give me about 10 minutes. And that's it. You're in the system. While I'm waiting, I usually observe. How does the barber talk to other clients? What kind of questions does he ask? This actually helps a lot, especially if you're still building confidence in English. Because here's the truth. A barbershop is not just about hair. It's a social space. People talk about work, about life, about random things. And you're expected to participate at least a little. But don't worry, you don't need to be a great speaker. You just need to understand the situation and respond naturally. All right, so now it's my turn. The barber looks at me and says something like, all right, come on over. I walk up, sit in the chair, and he puts that cape around me. At this point, there's no escape. You're committed. Now comes the most important part, explaining what I want. He usually starts with, so what are we doing today? This is the key moment. If you're not prepared, you might panic. But honestly, you don't need complicated English here. Simple, clear phrases work best. I usually say something like, I like it short on the sides and a little longer on top. Or just a trim, not too short. Or even, can you clean up a bit? Notice something. These phrases are not perfect technical descriptions, but they're natural. And barbers are used to this. They understand quickly. Sometimes the barber asks follow-up questions. How short on the sides? Do you want a fade? How much do you want off the top? Now, here's where it gets interesting. Even native speakers don't always know exactly what to say. So don't stress. You can use simple strategies. For example, not too short, maybe about this much. And I show with my fingers. Something like last time. Gestures are completely normal here. You don't have to rely only on words. Sometimes I even say, I'm not exactly sure. What do you recommend? This is actually a very natural phrase, and barbers usually appreciate it. It turns the situation into a collaboration instead of a test of your English. Then the barber might say, "All right, I'll do a low fade and keep some length on top." Even if you don't understand every word, don't panic. You can always ask, "Sorry, what does that mean?" Or, "Can you show me?" That's completely okay. Communication is the goal, not perfection. Once everything is clear enough, the barber nods and says, "Got it." And then you hear the clippers turn on. That buzzing sound is kind of the signal the talking phase is over and the haircut has officially begun. So the clippers are on, the haircut has started, and now comes a part that many learners find tricky: small talk. You're sitting there, you can't really move, you're looking at yourself in the mirror, and the barber suddenly asks, "So, how's your day going?" Simple question, but if you're not ready, your mind can go completely blank. The good news? The expected answers here are also simple. This is not a deep conversation. It's just a way to be polite and friendly. I usually say something like, "Pretty good, yeah. Just a busy week." Or, "Not bad. Finally got some time to relax." Then, naturally, I return the question, "How about you?" That's important. Conversation is always two-sided. Even a short response followed by a question keeps things flowing. Barbers often ask common, everyday questions. "What do you do for work?" "Are you from around here?" "Got any plans for the weekend?" You don't need long answers. In fact, short and clear is better. For example, "I work in IT. I'm a student." "Yeah, I live nearby." And if you want to keep the conversation going just a little, "I work in IT, mostly remote these days. I'm a student studying economics." That's enough. No pressure to explain your whole life story. Now, sometimes the barber talks more, sometimes less. Some barbers love conversation. Others are more quiet and focused. You need to read the situation. If the barber keeps asking questions, great, just respond naturally. If he becomes quiet, that's also normal. You don't need to force conversation. Silence in a barbershop is not awkward. It's actually pretty common. Another thing that happens during the haircut is quick technical questions like, "Is this length okay? Shorter here, square, or round in the back?" These are practical moments. You might need to react quickly. Simple answers work perfectly. "Yeah, that's good. Maybe a little shorter. Looks fine." And remember, you can always be honest. If something doesn't feel right, say it politely. "Could you leave it a bit longer here?" "Not too short, please. This is your haircut, after all." One more thing. Don't be afraid of not understanding everything. Sometimes the barber speaks fast, uses slang, or has an accent. It happens. You can always say, "Sorry, could you repeat that?" Or, "Just a bit slower, please." That's completely normal and totally acceptable. So, during the haircut, your goal is simple. Stay relaxed. Keep your English basic and natural, and don't overthink every sentence. In the next block, we'll move to the final stage, when the haircut is almost done and the barber asks the most important question: "How does it look?" All right, we're getting close to the end. The clippers are off, the scissors slow down, and the barber starts making small adjustments, cleaning the edges, checking the shape, maybe using a razor for the neckline. This is the moment where everything comes together. That happens. The barber turns the chair slightly toward the mirror, looks at me, and asks, "So, how does it look?" This is a key moment. You're expected to give feedback, but not in a complicated way. Again, simple and natural is best. "If I like it," I usually say, "Yeah, looks great. Thanks." Or, "Nice, I like it." That's enough. No need for long explanations. But what if something feels off? Here's the important part. You can still say something, just be polite and clear. For example, could you take a little more off the sides? Or maybe just a bit shorter here. This is completely normal. Barbers expect small corrections. It's part of the process, not a problem. Sometimes they'll show you the back using a mirror. That's when you might hear, "Is the back okay?" Now, let's be honest. Most of the time, you don't fully understand what you're looking at back there. And that's fine. Many people just say, "Yeah, looks good." But if you want to be more engaged, you can say, "Maybe clean it up a bit more." Or, "Could you make a little neater?" Again, simple phrases, clear intention. After that, the barber might add some finishing touches, a bit of gel, wax, or spray. Then he asks, "Do you want any product in it?" You can say, "Yeah, just a little." Or, "No, that's fine." Very straightforward. Finally, he removes the cape, brushes off the loose hair, and you stand up. This is the moment when you really see the result. Not just in the mirror, but how it feels. And honestly, this is where confidence comes in. Even if it's not 100% perfect, you carry it better when you respond positively and naturally. All right, the haircut is done. I step out of the chair, maybe run my hand through my hair for a second just to feel it. And now we move to the final part, paying and leaving. This part is simple, but still important. It's your last interaction, and it should feel natural and confident. I walk up to the counter, and the barber usually says something like, "That'll be 20, or 20 euros, please." Now, I don't need any complex language here. I just respond, "Sure." Then I pay, cash or card. If I'm using a card, I might say, "By car, please." Sometimes there's a small moment of silence here while the payment goes through. Totally normal. No need to fill it with words. After paying, this is where basic politeness matters. I always say, "Thanks," or "Thank you." And if I want to sound a bit more natural or friendly, "Thanks, I appreciate it." Or, "Great job, thank you." Now, in some places, people also leave a tip. Not always, but sometimes. If I do, I might just say, "Keep the change." Again, simple and natural. Then comes the goodbye. The barber usually says, "See you next time," or "Take care." And I respond, "See you," or "Have a good one." That's it. No long speeches, just short, real expressions. I open the door, step outside, and now I'm done. Fresh haircut, quick conversation, and a small but useful real-life English experience completed. And here's the thing. Situations like this build confidence. Not because they are complicated, but because they are real. You use English for an actual purpose, not just in theory. All right, let's put everything together in a clear, logical way so you can actually use it in real life without overthinking. A visit to a barbershop is not random. It follows a very predictable structure. Once you understand that structure, everything becomes much easier. Step 1. Entering and asking for a haircut. You walk in and say, "Hi, do you have time for a haircut?" That's it. Simple start, no stress. Step 2. Sitting down and explaining what you want. The barber asks, "What are we doing today?" And you respond with something basic. Short on the sides, longer on top. Or just a trim. You don't need perfect vocabulary. Clear and simple beats, complicated and confusing. Step 3. Answering questions and clarifying. The barber might ask, "How short? Do you want to fade?" And you respond, "Not too short, like this." Gesture. Or, "What do you recommend?" You're allowed not to know everything. That's normal. Step 4. Small talk during the haircut. Questions like, "How's your day? What do you do?" Keep your answers short. "Pretty good. I work in IT." And return the question. That's how conversation flows. Step 5. Checking the result. How does it look? You say, "Looks great." Or, if needed, "A bit shorter here, please." Honesty plus politeness equals perfect combination. Step 6. Paying and leaving. Thank you. See you. Done. Now here's the most important idea. You don't need advanced English to handle this situation. You need confidence, clarity, and a few key phrases. Even if your grammar isn't perfect, even if you make mistakes, communication still works. Because this is a real human situation, not an exam. And one more thing. The more you repeat experiences like this, the more automatic your English becomes. You stop translating in your head. You just respond. So next time you need a haircut, don't avoid the conversation. Use it. It's one of those everyday moments that actually helps you improve fast. That's it for today's episode.
Write a comment. 3 best comments get 20 English lessons completely free.